it's not all the individual's responsibility. That's where accountability is so important, because it's saying that actually it's my responsibility to make sure that you're treading the line. Actually, it's not just like, mate, you fell short there, shame on you. Actually, shame on me for not checking in. Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible.
Today is day 354, covering Hebrews 11, 12 and 13.
So I accidentally got a little bit overzealous, a little bit carried away yesterday at the end when I went and did the first 2 points of Hebrews 11, because I forgot that we were finishing on Hebrews 10 yesterday. So there was a spoiler alert in there. I apologise. They're really simple points, but they're really big. We chatted a couple of days ago. I was saying, you were talking about how our sin, I still can't remember it, my head is still swimming. But I mentioned the whole without faith it's impossible to please God, which is the whole 11 verse 6, which is that exact verse. And for me, that where you have people that sort of have the but I've lived a good life, I've helped people, I've not been that bad. It's like, yeah, sure, but also you still need to have faith that Jesus died for your sins, kind of thing. It's I can't remember whether it's here. I just had a little little scan forwards, where it's like, okay, you believe that there is God, good. Even the demons believe there's one God and shudder, kind of thing. It's like believing that there is a God and believing that Jesus died to atone for your sins are two very different things, and where so many faiths sort of separate.
100%. Well, the big thing, the best way to understand it, I think, is like you're in a courtroom, there's a judge that rightfully should throw his wrath at you, right? And that is God. But there's also the fact that you could be the judge's son if you just accept that, basically, and say, look, please just pay my fine for me, right? And by not having, that's what the faith is really. Faith is like, look, I understand that you can pay my fine. And if you don't do that, that's your call. But ultimately then without that faith, it is impossible to please God, because he has to give his wrath. Because yes, he's all loving and all merciful, but he's also all just. He is a just God. So he has to satisfy that justice. So yeah, that's the thing, right? And it's stupid if you went into the courtroom and you owed like $1 million, you'd be like, yeah, but I work with kids, Your Honor. It's like, so just because you do good things doesn't mean you didn't do something terrible and deserve to go to jail, right? Most of the people in jail have done some good stuff in their life.
Yeah, exactly. Valid
so
point.
There you go.
Good.
I just wanted to say that Hebrews 11 is a chapter to read. Like, please do read it. There's just so much on the incredible importance of faith and how none of the faithful receive their reward here. All of our rewards are going to be something we can look forward to in the future when we get to heaven, and it's just incredible. 12:1. Let's keep going, eh?
That's me then, is it? Cool. So 12:1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let's run the race with perseverance, the race marked out for us. Again, it's one of those verses that gets used so frequently, particularly to sort of young Christians, that's just like, well, you just have to, throw off the sin that hinders you and run with perseverance. It's like, great, but what does it actually look like for a 16-year-old that's trying to battle everything else the world's throwing at him? Yes. And I think the point then, verse 2, it says, fixing your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And that's the thing. It always comes back to, it's not a case of like, go on, just throw your sin off and that it so easily entangles you. It's like, no, focus on Jesus. And then that is a byproduct of it. But the thing that jumped out to me this time was actually the word perseverance. It's not a short-term thing. It's the classic marathon, not a sprint analogy, right? You can't just have a good couple of years. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
100%, mate. That's good. So I think that this kind of links to what I'm going to say next, on some levels at least. The Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. So part of that perseverance and running that race is sometimes you may feel like you're being punished. No, you're perhaps being disciplined for something that God is trying to improve in you, to make you better in a certain way, to purify you, sanctify you, get you ready for heaven in some way, right? But then instead of like being like, oh, this isn't fair, I feel punished, why, whatever, God, you should say instead, and this is from our mate Frank, right? All the way back in like Genesis or Exodus or something. Instead, pray to God and ask what God is trying to make you see in that season, right? And that then links to Hebrews 12:12, Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. And I love these arms and knees because, like, literally, you need strong arms and particularly strong knees in order to run a race and to be strong and resilient in that. So there you go.
Very true. I like that, mate. That's good. My next point was a situation where I've read this verse probably a few dozen times, but it just leapt off to me just slightly different this time, which was cool. And it's saying, I'm going to read it from 14. So 12:14, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See to it that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who sold his single meal for inheritance, etc. But the thing that I picked out this time was it says, see to it that no one falls short. See to it that no one is sexually immoral. It's not all the individual's responsibility. That's where accountability is so important, because it's saying that actually it's my responsibility to make sure that you're treading the line. Actually, it's not just like, mate, you fell short there, shame on you. Actually, shame on me for not checking in. Like, there has to be responsibility taken by everybody in the church if one person is falling away, because how is everyone else joining closer to them? It's our responsibility to see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God.
And that's good. That's very, very good. And yeah, absolutely. If there are Christians around you that are failing in certain ways, you do have to lovingly guide them and be a mentor to them. It's not just for the pastor or whatever on Sundays to be like, oh, you shouldn't do this, this, this. It's like, no, as you say, check in on them, and that is a way of showing love to them. Love that, mate. My last point is 13:12, so you go off, son.
Cool. We might have to filibuster a little bit on it, so I'll just cough for 4 minutes. 13:1, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. How flipping cool is that? Sorry, I see that's your point as well. 13:1 and 2. There's a cool story to that. The other day, Melody's dad was saying that his grandparents, I think, during like the Great Recession or something along those lines, had people rock up in the middle of winter and just dropped off a care package to them. Like, they had a big family, they had no food or like running out of food, stuff like that. These guys just showed up with a care package for them and turned and left. And apparently after they'd left, my father-in-law's granddad looked out and there were no tracks in the snow. Like fresh snowfall.
Yeah.
No tracks. So it's like, oh, flip. Like those kind of things. And I mentioned previously a friend of mine from back in Amersham who has opened up her home to some Ukrainian refugees, and she's just having a nightmare of a time. You just don't know. Like, the fact is, you're being hospitable, you're being kind, you're being loving, you're showing that to others. Who's to say that that isn't actually anything you do for the least of these, you do for God, whether it's an angel that God's put there for you or just someone's in need, doesn't matter. Do it as for God.
That's really cool, dude. And actually reminds me of that movie, The Shack, slightly, right? Because he gets the note and there's no snow footprints or whatever around. And he's like, how did this happen? Love that. And that's pretty much what I was going to say. I just love the idea. I think the other thing that, as you say, like, is also important, that is you don't know when you might be serving an angel, right? So I just said that. It's so cool to think that I may at some point have been kind to an angel and not even known it. Or what I'm worried about is it also means I could have, been horrible to an angel and failed at some point and not known that either.
Yeah.
And I did a nice little thing today. I had some leftover food after lunch with my wife and a couple that we hang out with sometimes. Don't get jealous, Adam. And this homeless man like just asked for my food and I just gave it to him like that. And I love the idea that was a little angel. That'd be awesome.
That's so cool. It kind of reminds me as well, I'd seen on YouTube a while ago, I was going to make this point tomorrow, but James is going to be so packed, such a book to listen into. That there was a new pastor starting at a church, and his first week there, he showed up as a homeless person, like dirty, smelly, gross, just to see the reaction of the congregation. And then when they announced the new pastor is here today, can you just come up on the stage? And he got up and like took off the gear, and like people's reaction to it, I can't remember whether that's actually how it played out, but the point was there. Maybe I'll share a link, watch it for yourself. So cool. Anyway, Tomorrow, the Book of James. Holy smokes, are you in for a roller coaster ride? Might be a long